These are tips for the video game Airline Manager 4 in random order. First tip, uh, in terms of third class, first class, business class, coach, I don't think it matters. You can see with this example, I ran a plane that all of the seats are business class or first class. It does not make more money than if all the seats were coach. Um, there's something called an A check, and you see over here it says hours to check, and it says 158, 158. When it gets to zero, that is when you run the A check. And I've repaired it at numbers lower than 10% and like 4 or 5%. I've heard people say that you can get numbers really high and you don't have to worry about it. However, if the number does get too high, you can have mechanical problems during flight. So remember to keep an eye on this number. When you buy fuel, you want to buy it as cheap as possible. Oh, this is actually CO2. You want to buy it as cheap as possible. So I check periodically through the day, and when it's a low number, for example, it's 171 right now. If it were around 100, I would buy as much as I can afford to buy. So you got to keep some cash laying around. You have to know how much cash you need. Right now, I need like 750,000 to buy my CO2 quotas and my fuel. You don't want to buy it when it's high. Same with fuel. It'll go down to 500. I think I paid 540 for my fuel, and I saw it at 430. And I've heard that they do events where the fuel price will go really low, like in the 300 range. Um, if you get your fuel too high, you won't make any money. And I had too many flights where I was breaking even because I was paying too much for fuel. You notice that I filled up to capacity. You see how it says 2.7 million? That was, I had filled it up to capacity, and the 2.7 was how much fuel I used for my last takeoffs of all of my vehicles. And I'm going to wait until the price goes down. That means I can go 4 days before I run out of fuel. You want to put your hubs as central in the world as possible. I chose Dubai because Dubai is a very central location. And I use a stopover so I can reach not everywhere in the world, but virtually everywhere in the world. And it allows me to fly long flights with a plane that has a 6,000 kilometer range. And I only have to check it once a day, and I make a good size amount of money. So try to be as central as possible. For the United States, it would be St. Louis, Missouri, or Kansas City is very central in the United States. And if you want to go international, you're going to want to be in a place like Lisbon or Newfoundland or something like that. So that's my choice. If you're doing the United States, I advise you to start out with Kansas City or St. Louis, which is central on the map. And if you're doing worldwide, I suggest Dubai. Make sure you get your reputation as high as possible. That's how you bring the money in. If you have a higher reputation, you will make more money. You will get more passengers. So you go to marketing and you start marketing campaigns, eco-friendly and airline reputation. Make sure you have enough CO2 before you do the eco-friendly. Otherwise, it's going to be a waste of money. And I always pay for the highest reputation, the most expensive campaign, because I usually am in the 40 to 50% range, and I've gotten it as high as 85%. To get it higher, you're going to have to do a little bit more work in the game. For example, by training people. You notice I've got 155 points. I did not pay for it. Somehow I earned it. This is a stopover. I definitely use stopovers. I use the Strato Cruiser because it's a long-range plane. I can do the stopover. It allows me to make twice as much money per flight, and I only have to check the game half as often. So that's why I recommend you use the stopovers. This is the difference between using a stopover and not using a stopover, you can see that when I added a stopover, I made nearly double the amount of money. It went from 386 up to 758. Definitely worth it. You want to use training as much as you can. If you want to save money on fuel, you have to get down to this one where it has the barrel of oil and the CO2. Obviously, you're not going to save a large amount of money on fuel, but anything that you can save is going to be helpful. You know, when you're talking about 4 million, you're going to be able to save maybe 1 or 200,000 per day. You could probably be able to get up to 3% fuel savings by training this, and that's why I chose to do it first. There are some interesting things in training. For example, there is a lounge in your airport hub. Okay, those are tips for Airline Manager 4. If you have any other tips, please post them in the comments, and if I come up with any other tips, I will also post them in the comments. If you have any questions or comments, please post below.